Alright, should be... Yep, there's the video. And we are recording for chapter 6 of that. Okay. Yeah, so you get Kirk's introduction... Well, not introduction, it's weird. To this ship. Which, I'm gonna get to it here. She was complete now. Gracefully whole. Kirk searched for some phrase, some description that expressed what he was feeling. Was she like a lovely woman? No, at this moment she was more than that to him. A fable, a myth come alive. Yes, that was it. She was as Aphrodite must have been when Zeus first raised her up from the sea, naked and shockingly beautiful. Raised up who, sir? Apparently he was speaking loud a little bit. I get it. You can't be too specific, because this isn't quite a visual medium. Not in the same way, so yeah. One thing though, it described it being an unexpected flair for drama that Scotty maneuvered it so that it's like only at that final moment when you could see the whole of the Enterprise is she revealed. It's like, no, I said in the previous video, that's exactly what Scotty would do. He's proud of her. He would never want anyone to see her until you can see the whole thing. Just a snippety. No. No. I'm sorry. Roddenberry's wrong. Okay, that Scotty's personality. I mean, there was time to enjoy this. In fact, it even mentions that he does pilot around like it's just an inspection tour. So he is taking some time here. This isn't a rush there. He's going to make sure. No, you're seeing this the right way. Okay. I'll come back to that. There's one thing in here. Kirk is starting to wonder, could Kirk, do what young and capable Decker said was impossible, which is the whole get this thing going in 12 hours, have the ship ready in 12 hours versus 20? And let me just be clear. It will be ready when it leaves. I'm sorry, that's how this should be viewed, especially because the V'ger Cloud is such... I mean, took out 3 Klingon heavy cruisers with ease, things that they think are a match for Constitution-class ships, starships. And it just... done, and it's also, they think that this thing has a 6.68 AU wide power field that's generating. It's like, this... No. If Kirk says, we're leaving now, guess what? It's ready now. They'll just continue to do what they can as they're going, but it's like, no. This is a situation where the ship is ready whenever you say you're leaving. Because it's not going to be ready later, it's ready then. It could be ready earlier, but yeah, it's... I'm sorry, it just... That is the mentality I think you need to have there, where it's like, oh, it'd be nice to have this working, it'd be nice to have that. No, we need this ready now. We're going now. So then there's this. This is the point that I have made earlier in my notes, but this is kind of a better spot to start talking about it. He waited a few seconds, then began to wonder if the lifts featured some redesign that required he do more than stand within sensor range. He searched his mind rapidly for any memory of any such redesign in Enterprise's turbo lifts. The turbolift cab arrived. So, I actually do have some specific issues there, but in general, what I inferred previously was that he was disconnected from the Enterprise. That he has not been up to date on it, because there'd been no reference to it. Nothing. I mean, I think there'd been some talk about the refit, but nothing like he has a knowledge of it. Okay? And by that I mean specific knowledge. Obviously he knows what's happening, but I mean specific knowledge, like he knows the change is being made. There's been no indication in any of that. But it's like, nah, he's been going over the designs himself. He's visited it a number of times while it was still being worked on, so we couldn't see it in its full glory until now, because it is outwardly finished. But still is like, you implying that he didn't know this. And it's also a problem because the redesigns, Kirk is... He cares about this ship. Even if he doesn't command it, he still cares about it. He would study this. He would know all of it. So one thing that ends up happening later, based on my memory for the movie, is warp core imbalance causes a wormhole to be made, and then there's an asteroid in there, and they have to destroy it, and he's like, fire phasers. But Deck was like, no, in like a slow motion thing, fire torpedoes. And then it gets explained to Kirk, phasers are now connected to the warp core, and because that got shut down and because of the emergency, phasers are inoperable. Which is a dumb design. To make your primary weapon dependent on that is very stupid. Especially for another reason, but to be fair, that other reason could actually come into play more so later. As in, like, later in time, at, like, Next Generation phase. But the idea that, no, Kirk would know that. Kirk would know that design change. I mean, he might not know about the new color in 10 Forward, in the new wallpaper in 10 Forward, no. But something as crucial as how the weapons are different now, and they're different because it makes them more powerful, no, he would know that. It might be against his experience to go to torpedoes instead of phasers, but it's, in the movie, it's presented more as a he doesn't know versus his reaction is wrong. So, but this is telling me, no, he'd absolutely know. There is no way I can believe he would not be with it. So we'll see. Maybe it's different in the book. That's possible. We shall see. But that quick thing, just to explain that, what I have seen mentioned, talked about in ship designs, at least later on, main power and warp power are different things. The warp core, the matter-antimatter reactor, is not responsible for main power. That's responsible for the warp core, because that's the only thing on this ship that needs that much power. Main power is actually handled by fusion reactors. Which makes a lot more sense, because those you can refuel while on the go. I mean, that you just need to collect the correct amount of deuterium and tritium. So, stuff that is just legitimately floating around in space. Antimatter is not so common. You would need to like actually visit Starbase and refuel on that. And by not very common, yes, you can potentially find it in space. It's very unlikely. Capturing it would be difficult. No, it's most likely there are facilities at Starbases on planets that are producing it, and then it's stored and made ready to transfer to a ship. Which is something I don't believe is ever presented in any Star Trek. But is, a refueling of the warp core, but absolutely that's how you'd have to, because antimatter is not naturally occurring in bulk. I think that's how I want to put it. And it's basically the best energy storage mechanism, but anyway. Putting the phasers onto the warp core, which is, that's meant for the warp engines, because that's what needs the most power. Putting them on that, which, plenty of times when warp core is down, but you still have main power, so it's like, well, we just lost primary weapon. And yes, I consider phasers primary weapon over torpedoes, because torpedoes, they hit hard. They are very powerful. And there's a limited number of them. Phasers, it's just so long as you have power. At least that's how it's always presented. Technically, they might... I don't remember if it's stated anywhere officially. No, I shouldn't really put it like that. I don't know if it's stated anywhere within the TV shows. And I don't know about any official, like, Star Trek Bible type canon for it. I'm not sure if the phasers are just light-based or if they are plasma-based, because if they're plasma-based, then you do need some sort of mass there, but anyway, it still is... Largely, it's energy-based, is how it's depicted, so you don't really run out of phasers like you can with torpedoes. Plus, you can vary the strength of phasers probably a little easier than torpedoes. Although torpedoes do have variable warheads, but still. So yeah, come back to it. It still is this whole. It's Kirk should have a great knowledge of this. It's weird, especially because they haven't described any of his activities as an admiral. So it's not like we have any reason to believe that he would be distracted from knowing about the Enterprise. But even still, if 9 to 5 he's being an admiral, 5 to 9 he's studying the Enterprise, because that's the ship he loves. That is his ship. And even if it... The way I want to believe that the captains behave throughout Star Trek, for how it is, how the captains are depicted and the relationships with their ships, they know everything that's happening to them after they leave that ship. Like, what is it, the Stargazer? That was Picard's first command that he has a model of in his ready room. Um, the way he talks about that ship, yes, he's now on the Enterprise, but he knows, the way he talks about it is like he knows where that ship is. He knows who's in command, but he doesn't necessarily talk about it, but he knows. He keeps up to date because that was his ship. And he knows something, every captain would respect that and probably be like, that captain, if Picard was ever like, hey, how's it doing? How's my old girl doing? That captain would probably be like, this is completely out of respect. I know I'm busy, but I'm going to make time for him. He's being respectful for me. He just wants to know how the ship is doing. I'm going to tell him. I'm going to find the time to make sure he knows. Because he loves her like I do. I respect him. So, yeah. Kirk absolutely would be staying up to date and everything. And he might not have the hands-on experience that Decker would have with the ship, but he would have experience with the ship and what it's going to be capable of on paper. So anyway, he gets on the turbo lift, heading up to the bridge, and he's thinking about how he should appear on there. He should appear intelligently concerned, but also confident that they would give him their full The turbo lift doors snapped open. Kirk stepped out onto the bridge, his entry unnoticed and his presence unrecognized. I mean, to be fair, that's actually completely appropriate and expected. They're busy, because it's like, they gotta get the ship going. Everyone is busy. Like, this is, Decker, it says, who is captain, it says that he's down engineering working. And it's like, it needed him to be scrubbing floors. Guess what? He's gonna do that, because it needs to get done. It's just, everyone is busy, so when he steps off the turbo lift onto the bridge, barely anyone knows this at first. Sulu finally turns and is like, Captain? Yes, I think it actually, no, he says sir. When it gets to Uhura, she does refer to him as Captain, which is either by habit or because the orders have come in that Kirk is in command, which, as is mentioned in one of the episodes of Deep Space Nine, it doesn't matter what your rank is. When you are in charge of the ship, you are the captain. So it doesn't matter that Kirk is an admiral, he's captain. In the Deep Space Nine episode, it's Miles is explaining this to Nog, who's Ensign Nog at the time, because Commander Dax is in charge of the Defiant, and it's, yes, Captain. It's like, isn't she a commander? And Miles explains, it's tradition. Whoever is in command is named Captain. Nog is like, so does that mean if I was in charge, I would be? You'd have to recognize me as Captain? And I think it's O'Brien. It might have been somebody else. Just points out to him, at the time, Ensign, at the time you'd be in charge, there'd be no one left to call you Captain. We're all dead. So it's like, yeah, and Nog is like, yeah, that's fair. He is the lowest officer there, so the most junior officer. So that does make sense. But no, she does in fact know the orders had come through. Not necessarily that anyone is aware beyond her. And she does, after Kirk asks where's Decker, is like, he's on engineering and he doesn't know. Because, yeah, similar to the whole, the love of your ship, the Enterprise is Decker's ship and is now having her taken away from him. It's like that's... He is not going to be happy. He would never be. No one in that situation would be happy, especially because it's not, I'm giving you up, it's a being taken away. So, yeah. Only thing to mention is both Sulu and Uhura have been promoted from lieutenant. They were both lieutenants, as I would call, 2 lieutenant commanders. And Chekhov is now a full lieutenant. He had been an ensign. And he's now at the weapons station, the more complex weapons station. He describes with Kirk even thinking, oh yes, I had heard that he had just completed Defense Combat School, whatever the name was. And basically, yes, he is now the weapons officer. I'm just trying to think, because yes, he is there. He's the one manning the weapons console. I'm trying to remember if that comes up much later in the other movies, and I don't. Well, that's true. Wrath of Khan, he's attached to the Reliant. So it's really only Undiscovered Country and Final Frontier that he's on the Enterprise. And Undiscovered Country, he tends to float around more. Oh yeah, and Sulu isn't there. But Valeris takes Sulu's position. I can just do that. I actually don't remember what he's doing. I know at one point he is on the bridge as the acting. Well, he's the commanding officer at the time. It's just his shift. I don't remember actually seeing what he's doing. And Final Frontier, I don't really remember that well. It's also for a lot of it that the ship isn't being run by the normal crew. So anyhow, so yeah, I guess in the next chapter we will get Decker's response, which will be interesting because my understanding is, I've mentioned before that there's an animosity between him and Kirk. The reason for that is not just the whole Kirk taking the ship. It's also because that you could see some amount begrudging, nonetheless, but some amount of sublimation of your ego because the whole, okay, this is an emergency situation. Yes, I know this stuff better than he does, maybe, but this is an emergency situation. He is far more experienced. He is my senior officer. Letting him be in command is probably the right call. And it's like you can control. But it's also because he is the son of Commodore Decker, who died in the Doomsday Machine, which that's in the original series. And it's like, so there's some animosity as well as potentially some, I don't know exactly how, I've just heard this, that some animosity because, you know, like, why is Kirk alive and Decker's father? Why isn't he? So we shall see and assume that this next chapter is when that may start. It may also be later because I think that there is at least one scene where they are alone together and able to converse without anyone listening in. So, yeah. Oh, I almost forgot to mention that. It occurred to me in the previous video, but I then it exited my mind. It's odd, this whole thing about why aren't the Enterprise's transporters working and they had to beam up to the shipyard. It's like, you can beam up and down from orbit to a planet easily enough. In theory, you should just be able to beam onto the Enterprise wherever you want. It seems a little odd, the idea that he couldn't just beam directly there. Don't get me wrong, I think it's completely appropriate canon, or at least headcanon, that the two transporters can be linked up such that it is more efficient and safer to go between them, to transport between them, than to just go from one transporter to anywhere. And then, of course, the site-to-site transporting, but I think that may happen once in the original series, but by and large, that doesn't become a thing until TNG. Alright. Hey, I'm actually managing to keep these short. We'll see how much longer that lasts. See you next time.